Hi, welcome to our 2020 Farm Financial Analysis Summary. My name is Jessica Hanson, and I am a Farm Business Management Instructor at Northland Community and Technical College in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. We have a 6-part webinar series this year. I'll be covering the livestock portion. Be sure to check out our remaining 5 webinars. For livestock, I will be covering the 3 main areas: dairy, beef, and hogs. Just a reminder that our dairy data does not include organic production in our first half of the summary review. For 2020, we found that the number of dairy cows on the average dairy farm is continuing to increase. In a 10-year period, the average dairy farm has increased its dairy cows by 83 cows. Milk production per cow has increased by almost 600 pounds. That is the highest in 10 years. That is an increase of nearly 2,668 pounds per cow. That's an additional $527 per cow based on the 2020 average milk price of $19.77. 2020 has had the highest net return per cow of $964 since 2014, which was the highest at $1,249. 2020 was the second highest in the last 10 years. The lowest net return being 2018 at a negative $38. That is a $1,000 difference on net return from 2018 to 2020. Returns per hundredweight of milk was again the second highest in 10 years at $3.86. Its highest was at $5.26 per hundredweight in 2014, the lowest being in 2018 at a negative 16 cents. Here's the 20-year net returns per cow. 2009 was the lowest recorded net return at a negative $210.35 in the last 20 years, with 2014 being the highest net return in 20 years at $1,249. And 2020, the second highest in 20 years at $964 before labor and management. In 2020, the average milk price on milk sold was $19.77, which is the 4th highest in 10 years, but 2020 was the second most profitable year in 20 years. In 2018, the lowest year for profitability, the milk price wasn't actually the lowest in 10 years. So why was 2018 such a poor year? 2017 had a drought, and going into 2018, we had a low hay supply and one of the coldest winters since around 1996, 1997. The 10-year average on the average milk price sold is $19.04. Only 3 years, 2012, 2014, and 2020, were above that average milk price. For cost and gross margin per hundredweight, there was a $2.48 difference between the average group and the high group on net returns. There was a $2.28 difference between the average and high group for the net return with labor and management. All expenses were lower in the high group, but specifically the direct and overhead expenses. There are 275 dairy farms in the database, the majority of them being the 101 to 200 cow dairy. On this slide, we can see that the pounds of milk is higher with the larger cow herds. Now I'll cover organic dairy farms. For our organic dairy farms, net return in 2020 was $627. Unlike traditional dairies, it wasn't one of the top years for dairy organic producers. The peak year for organic dairy was in 2015 For organic milk price, it was the lowest in price in the last 10 years at $29.50. Only 2012 and 2018 were lower, but it was still a profitable year in 2020. Pounds of milk on organic dairies was up in 2020 from 2019, but was lower than its peak in 2017. Overall, organic dairies did have a good year with a positive net return. Traditional dairies also had a good year with positive net returns. We will now review our beef, cow, calf enterprise data. This is the net return per cow before labor and management and excluding backgrounding. In 2020, beef producers saw a small net return of $6 per cow on average. It is the first positive return in 5 years. Remember that this does include government payments. Costs and returns per cow, the average group was $6 in net return. However, add in labor and management, and the average return per cow was negative at $83. On the high group, they saw a return of $366. And with labor and management, they had a $296 return. The big factors in the gross margin and some of the direct and overhead costs. Here's a 3-year trend for cow-calf. We can see that the average cow-calf producer has lost $90.45 on a 3-year average. The high group made $234.94. Looking at the high group, they had a better calving and weaning percentage, as well as heavier calves when they sold. They actually had less cows calving than the average group. The high group also had lower feed costs than the average group by $77.46. All of these factors combined led to a profit of $234.94 on a 3-year average. Cost and returns of production per cow. If we look at the bottom of the chart, it will give us the herd size. We can see that the best net returns were on herds of 50 to 100 cows by $37 before labor and management. The herds that lost the most were herds with up to 50 cows. A lot of times, those smaller herds are farmers just getting started in the cattle business or farmers that just don't have enough cattle to spread expenses over. How did backgrounding compare to not backgrounding in 2020? In 2020, it was more profitable to background, and some of this was due to the way government payments worked out and the fact that hay and feed costs were fairly reasonably priced in 2020. Beef and finishing enterprise data. For dairy finishing, price was just slightly higher than 2019, but the net return was up by about $16 a hundredweight before labor and management. For beef finishing, it was also slightly up from 2019 with a net return of $8.03 a hundredweight. It was the highest return in 4 years. Average weight sold on beef finishing are up from 2019 by about 60 pounds. Looking at the 10-year history, 2020 weights are at their highest by 28 pounds. Hog enterprise data. Just a little on finished feeder pigs. We can see the price received by hundredweight carcass is down by $10.73 from 2019. Price received on hundredweight live is also down at $7.79 a hundredweight. Net return on hundredweight, however, is up by $3.69 over 2019. Weaning to finish hogs, price remained almost unchanged for carcass weight and live weight. Net return was $12.89, higher in 2020 which was an increase of $589 over 2019. Please remember to watch the other 5 webinars in our series. Thank you and have a great 2021 season.